All right. We're about 3 after. I'm not seeing a jump in numbers really too much right now. So I think I'm going to get started just because those first couple of slides are more housekeeping. And if anybody does miss anything, everyone's going to get it on a recording anyway. So officially, thank you everybody for joining us and welcome to our second webinar of 2022. I can't believe we're already this far into it. I feel like it's still 2020 if you want to honestly ask me. But today we're going to be talking about launching a virtual parent orientation that fuels student success. I'm very happy to have with me a couple of people who are going to be providing their expertise and insight to help anybody kind of just who is starting with this journey get a little bit more insight into what it entails and really the successes that they've seen on their own campuses. So without further ado, I'm going to start diving in here. Just so everybody knows, as you join, your lines are on mute. We cannot see you. We cannot hear you. We're very sorry about that, but it'd just be way too much going on our screen. So if you do have a question at any point, please use the chat feature. We may stop and say, we need to answer this question right now because it is very pertinent. We might save it towards the end of the event, depending on where we are and what we're talking about, but we are looking and we do want to make sure we have plenty of time to answer everybody's questions today. Also, tomorrow morning, we will be sending out this recording as well as the deck that I'm going to be walking through today. So if there's any facts or figures or something that you want to hold on to, but you don't have time to take notes, don't worry about it. Sit back and relax today. We'll get it all to you tomorrow. Today's agenda really quick. Going to introduce these lovely people who are joining me today to you all. Going to give you a quick 15-second ad on who CampusESP is and why we're even holding this webinar. Then we'll dive into the meat. We'll talk about what virtual parent orientation, really is, the success that these two PSU schools have seen, how you can start to do something on your campus, and how CampusESP can help if you are inclined. So here's my quick little ad. If you've been to a webinar before, you've seen these screens, and thank you for bearing with us. But CampusESP is a parent engagement software platform. Basically, we work with higher education institutions to make them have the ability to scale their parent engagement strategy. We know that the old school snail mail just doesn't quite resonate like it used to. You can't move people through the funnel if you don't know what they're reading or what they are absorbing or what they're responding to. We try to provide a service to help you do that a little bit more strategically and scalably. So we do portals, emails, drip campaigns, and all the ways to communicate with your parents to both influence the enrollment funnel as well as your current students and help them stay successful on campus. We work with about a little over 180 universities at this point, and we just hit the 3 million mark on the families that are in our system. So we are extremely proud of that. And at the end of this event, if you want to learn more about who we are, obviously our website's the best place to go. If you go to it and you want some more information about the facts and figures that we're talking about today, go to that research tab there that's pointed to, or to the webinars tab. There's plenty of information there so that you can spend all day learning more about the importance of parent engagement. All right, that's enough of the sales pitch. All right, so I'm Melissa Griner. I'm the Director of Marketing here at CampusESP. I'm super happy to be talking to you all and sharing this with you today. But more importantly, let's talk about who else is joining me. Cindy Hill is the Director of Parent Programs at Penn State. Cindy, can you introduce yourself and what your role is at Penn State and just kind of give a little bit of context to the kind of school that you're working with, just so people can see the contrast between what you and Kyle are doing?
Wonderful. Hi, Melissa and Lacey and Kyle. I'm Cindy Hill. I am the Director of the Penn State Parents Program. I've been at Penn State for 12 years, but I've been the Director of the program for 6.5. We're a large institution. We have about 42,000 undergraduate students at our main campus, as well as 19 additional undergraduate campuses. And we are communicating with parents at all of those campuses. So we have a big task and a lot of folks that we are talking to when it comes to our messaging to parents and families.
Thank you. And then Kyle, we're going to turn it over to you, Associate Director of New Student Experience at Plymouth State University, not to confuse the two PSUs we have with us today. Slightly different size schools, different locations. So Kyle, tell us a little bit about what you do in your campus.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Hasbecka. I oversee all things with orientation and new student programming here at Plymouth State. We're located up in New Hampshire, just at the base of the White Mountains, and we have about 4,000 undergraduate students here.
Excellent, thank you. And then one of my fabulous colleagues, Lacey, can you introduce yourself and share what you do at Campus ESP?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lacey. I'm a senior customer success manager at Campus ESP, and I help onboard our new customers and get their parent portal up and running for families.
Excellent. So let's dive right into it, guys. Why host parent orientation? I can't imagine there's a university that's joining us today that doesn't have some kinds of parent orientation program currently going on. There are a host of reasons to do this. I have a couple of these listed out here, but I think most people probably started doing it back in the day just to help families feel connected. It's supposed to be a way to welcome your students when you do student orientation. That's welcome the parents that are very often bringing them to campus as well. But I think the parent orientation setup has evolved over time. And one of the other reasons that we see a lot of schools really having success here is they're helping families understand their role in supporting their student. And Cindy, we were talking previously, you mentioned that this was a really important part in your strategy for parent orientation, helping parents kind of understand the role that they should play. Do you see that like parents are coming to parent orientation and already kind of figuring out what the right role is, or do you take it upon yourself to have parent orientation help them figure out what the right role is and exactly how much of a role they should be playing in their students' experience?
That's a good question, and I think the right answer to that is it depends, right? But I think most importantly, when we're crafting our messages, we need to craft it to the messages to the parents who don't understand. And the rest of the parents will get it as well, right? So I think it's really important that we talk about what the role of a parent or a family member or any other supportive person in the student's life, what their role is when the student transitions to college, because parents are so used to being involved, especially at the high school level. And when they transition, it's not that we don't want them involved, but that involvement looks different. And we need to explain that to them. I'm also a college parent, so I understand how parents feel about this. But what I always tell parents is it's really hard to turn the parenting off. And we need to learn to do that and sort of transition our roles from that advocate for our students into that sort of coach on the sidelines. And I do think we need to spell it out for parents. And I think orientation is the right place to do that.
And it makes a lot of sense. It's a whole new world for the students as well as the parents. And there's a lot of transitions going on right there that are sensitive, but very important.
Absolutely.
I think that takes us really nicely to our next bullet, is a reality setting for parents, what the highs and lows of college life are going to be for their students. I mean, if you have a first generation student, you have never experienced what that is like. Your own college experience probably is slightly or very different depending on, where you went and what your student's going through. And they need to be prepared that it's not going to always be, an easy path ahead, although there's going to be plenty of resources to make sure that the students are successful. And that takes us to our next one, who really is drawing attention to the important campus resources that are available for students and giving the families the access to those tools so that they can support their students. Kyle, I know we talked about this before, like how important has it been for your parents to have this information at the ready? Why do you think it's so important that they have a list of the resources on campus? Because we know that probably students are going to go, when they need help, where are they going to go? They're going to go to mom and dad.
Exactly. From that conversation, I remember we talked to, like, parents are the number one resource in terms of so many of them compared to so little of us compared to the number of students. And so this has been great for us in terms of having the presentations pre-recorded and available on demand for parents. We trickle them out over the summer, so we're not overwhelming them with information. But when things happen during the school year and parents are trying to remember what we talked about during orientation, they can go back to any presentation and pinpoint exactly what we talked about. So for example, if a student's feeling homesick in October, parents can go back to our presentation about how their students can get involved on campus and get them connected with student life. So that way they can find their fit here.
That's great. And that takes us to our next thing here. Oh, really, actually, the really end goal here is student success. And I think that's just kind of something that you'll see as a uniform theme throughout all of the slides and everything we talk about today, that everything that you're doing from a parent orientation standpoint is always to ensure the most successful path for the students that are joining you on campus that semester. But virtual parent orientation, this is a newer concept. And I think the first bullet point on why we started doing it is the obvious one, which is COVID. Suddenly, 2 years ago, it was not an option to have a bunch of parents on campus because it was not an option to have a bunch of students on campus. It was a pivot. It was the way that higher ed tried to keep things moving as cleanly as possible. But I think that we saw a lot of good come out of it because we still had a way to connect, albeit in a very different channel. And when you have a virtual parent orientation, even as COVID, fingers crossed, starts to fade and not impact this quite as much, we know we have families that are far away from campus who cannot afford to travel along with their students, who have conflicts in other areas of their life. So when you offer this, you basically are making this information more accessible to your entire family base. But as Kyle, you just talked about in the last slide as well, I think creating a lasting resource here is really important. When you have a virtual thing, you can save it. It is recorded, it is saved. There's a location that parents can go to refresh their memories, to get more information on something, to click off to another page of the website, or to find out that person's name that they know was mentioned, but they never really wrote down. The information is going to stay with them longer. And even if you have parents that are on site for a traditional parent orientation, having this resource available for them to kind of do a level deeper can be extremely helpful throughout the entire, not even school year, but their experience on campus. And again, the whole reason you're doing this is for student success. Kyle, sorry, did you want to add anything more to that?
Well, let's say some of the things that happen every year, like financial aid and billing, they can go back at any time each year and review those important resources to make sure that they're getting it done right. And also if there's any changes to information, it all goes back into that parent orientation. So they'll continue to get those updated resources throughout their time as parents.
And Melissa, can I add something as well?
Of course.
I think that one thing that we can talk about when we think about virtual parent orientation is also the equity issue, and how that creates equity among our families to be able to access this information. And that's where the cost comes into, to a certain extent. But sometimes it's not even related to cost. It might be health issues. It might be other responsibilities at home. And then parents miss out on some really important information. So the equity that a virtual program provides is really nice.
I couldn't agree more. Let's take a quick look here at what you two have done from a virtual orientation perspective. These are some screenshots that Lacey was kind enough to pull from us, and some statistics about how your orientation over the past year or two has done. Penn State, obviously, you're working over 20 campuses right now when you do orientation. So we have a high number of users in there, which is great. Really successful open rates and click-through rates. Cindy, you want to talk a little bit about, I know what you said to me before was that you hadn't heard any complaints. So that was how you knew it was really going well. But how do you feel like the move, or the enhancement, I guess, really, to a virtual option has been received by your families?
Well, I think that, as we talked about previously, letting the data speak for itself is really important, right? It's pretty obvious that parents are accessing this information. And I always say no news is good news. No one called us and said, this isn't working for them. Maybe we had a few phone calls that said everyone's talking about it and I didn't get it, which means their student didn't register them, right? That's a whole other issue. But no news is good news. And the data speaks for itself. I think this was very successful. We had done a virtual orientation off of the platform the year before. So in 2020, we had done it, a virtual orientation. We had absolutely no idea how many parents utilized the resource. We just didn't have a way of measuring that. So we transitioned the content with the help of Lacey and created this incredible matrix of campuses and what information went to which campus. And we're able to track that. And one of my campuses can call me up and I can say, 67% of your parents, read your emails. And I think that's really good. So, so the data's impressive.
It really is. You guys have wonderful results. And then we can take a look here. Plymouth State, you didn't do too shabby either. Smaller number of users, but obviously smaller school. But great, again, number of impressions. Your open rates are well above average, click rates well above average. Share with us, Kyle, kind of, did you get any feedback, or again, were you just happy to know that parents were actually diving in and reading the information that's so valuable to them?
Yeah, I think Cindy said it well. No news is good news. The first year we were forced into it for 2020, we weren't obviously planning to have everything go virtual, but it's been great for us in terms of now being able to offer hybrid programming for parents. So like you spoke about earlier, for parents who can't necessarily make the times that we have available, it's been awesome for them. The only phone call I got this year about it actually was just from one parent, because her spouse was receiving it and she wasn't, and she wanted to know how she could get on board with it. And so that was really great news for us.
It is. I mean, and we all know that parents can sometimes call the offices and ask lots of questions, and that can be a big burden to your staffs, which are small and busy, especially during orientation. So knowing that they have a place that is really going to answer all of their questions and allow you guys to focus your efforts and energies on other things is a big help as well. So getting back to this registration and attendance, how to get parents to join, both Cindy and Kyle talked about how the only issue they had was getting more people to join. And obviously that's going to be important, is how you're going to get the news out. There's a couple different ways. Obviously, we are going to mention Campus ESP pushes. We know we've worked with both Cindy and Kyle to do this. Campus ESP can have you basically drip emails and announcements to the families that are kind of tagged as being a part of that orientation community, so that they are aware that they register for anything that needs to have a physical form filled out. You also can do old school, old-fashioned print mail. There's some novelty in print mail right now, and if it's really just directing them to know the resources available, that postcard might go on the fridge or something and remind them that this is a place that they can go for more detailed information. And then using your students. I know, Cindy, you said you kind of use your orientation office on campus for students as a way to trigger the invitations to the parents. Students should know that this exists, and they should know the value that having their parents have information can bring to them. So any way you can try and get your students to invite mom or dad or aunts or uncles or grandparents to something is really going to be helpful. Cindy, I know you guys use the orientation office to do this. Is there any other ways that you use your students to try and make sure the parents were aware of this resource available to them?
So I partner really closely with our orientation office in a lot of ways. But what we did was, when students registered for orientation, they had an opportunity to invite a guest, basically. And as soon as they invited a guest and added an email address, that email address was provided to me. And then I could upload that into the orientation modules, and that would start the drip campaigns. And then when we did presentations, we did a live, even for our virtual orientation, we did a live virtual welcome, and we pushed the messages out during the live virtual welcome as well.
That's great. And then Kyle, I know you guys relied pretty heavily on the drip campaigns, right? And you did some hard copy actual mail as well too.
Yes. So my partner in our communications office really managed a drip campaign for us to get parents and families enrolled. And then on our side of things, in the orientation office, we did a flashy postcard to try to catch their eye of the parents and the students, letting them know everything we were offering to them for orientation. And we know that went over really well this year. We included a little bit of PSU swag in that mailer, and we still see those moving around campus. So we know those were successful. But our numbers definitely skyrocketed after the postcard that we sent out. It's similar to what you're saying. I imagine that a lot of them put it on the fridge, and it was kind of that daily reminder that they needed to check things and make sure they're staying up to date.
Definitely. And we all know that, I mean, you guys are all on a webinar now. This is probably one of many webinars you've been on, and probably your 14th Zoom meeting today. So there is some, Zoom fatigue that we all are experiencing. So when you go and you switch your agenda to an online experience, there's a little probably concern or hesitation that people aren't going to want to watch it or read it, or how, what are you going to do to make sure that the information that really needs to be delivered is received and retained. So a couple of steps here. These do come from both Cindy and Kyle's advice, but I'm going to kind of compile them here on the page, which is the first thing is to really use your traditional in-person orientation agenda as your guide. That is your gold standard. That is what you have developed over years and years. This is what you want parents to know. So if it's offered in person, find a way to offer it virtually, be it a seminar or an actual live event or an article. There's always a different way to do it, but find out a way to make sure that all that information has a place in the online version. And then to kind of address that fatigue issue, break your content into really short and easy to digest modules. People might have 5 minutes, they might have a half an hour, letting them kind of absorb the information and the time and methods that are going to work for them in that moment is going to allow for them to really take it in and handle it in a better way. Leaning heavily on visuals or anything interactive. We all know that we probably are going to watch a video over reading a very long gray looking article. Take that, that you use for all of your online consumption and utilize it here. It's the same experience. Offering takeaway documents, lists, resources, anything they can download, print and put on that fridge next to the postcard or kind of have on their desktop at the ready. These are resources they're going to come back to time and time again, and making those easy to find is going to be extremely helpful. And continuing to use the hub throughout the year. But, I know Cindy and Kyle have both mentioned this before. If you're going to have this hub, you can have it permanently. It doesn't have to go away just because, the beginning of the school year has begun. Having a way to have this resource as a place they can come back to is going to be really important here. I'm actually going to pause here because I have a question that came through, and I think this is a good part to talk about it. This is from Julie, and she asks, do campuses individually create the content for parent orientation, or is that generated by CampusESP? And so I'm going to answer part of the question. And then I think Kyle and Cindy, if you want to talk about how your teams developed your content, I think this is a great place to do that. But CampusESP is a partner in this process. So obviously our staff is not going to know everything going on in your campus, but we are able to learn a lot from your website and what you share with us. So our team, including Lacey, does do a lot of the work in getting these things set up. But what you include is very much up to each individual school. You can customize it to your heart's content. So Cindy, do you want to start and kind of share a little bit about what what was your process on figuring out exactly what content you wanted to share and how?
So we took our orientation content that we delivered, our in-person orientation content. We took all the scripts from all the sessions and sort of transferred that into posts, into those digestible modules, right? And I'm trying to think if there's any CampusESP, what I would call sort of college parent generic content in there, but I don't think it is. I think it's all Penn State related. Now the rest of our newsletter, right, there's a blend of some content, but we're creating all that content, but the content already existed, right? It's not like we started from ground zero. We took our scripts, we took our orientation schedule, we organized our modules around sessions, right? So we have a housing session. So we did a housing module, and we had we call it the business of being a student. That's where we do our finance and tuition and student aid and those kinds of things. So that's how we built our content.
Same here. I think for us, we took the presentations that previously existed in orientation and turned them into modules as well, and tried to just make them as digestible as possible. I think Cindy really covered a lot of the stuff that we do too. The only thing I would add is, I guess now what we're able to do going into our third year of this is I'm able to take the videos from previous years, and when I'm planning next year's orientation, sit down with the campus partners and review them together to determine where we can make improvements in terms of how to get the information across more clearly or more interactively in a way that we can't necessarily do for live presentations. And that's been super exciting for us.
That's great. All right, at this point, I'm going to hand things over to Lacey, and Lacey's going to kind of go into a little bit about how CampusESP really does help. She's going to kind of take you into the system, show you a couple of things that we've done for both Kyle and Cindy and another of other clients to get their orientation set up and moving. And after that, I know we're already starting to get some questions in, which I'm very excited about. We will start going through all of those. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick. Lacey, you should be able to dive in on your end.
All right. Yeah, this is the hardest part, just making sure that we can do the switcheroo here. Can you give me a thumbs up?
I can see it. Good.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm really excited to do some demo and training here with you today. So what you see here is my demo portal that I'll be using. And just to make sure that everyone has a good understanding about how communities work and how we can use communities to target content to parents and families, I'm going to start by showing what the onboarding survey looks like, which is what parents will take when they log into the portal for the first time. And then from there, I'm going to show you the breakdown of what can make up a family orientation hub community. And then I'll wrap up the training by showing you how easy it can be to set up a drip announcement, which can be tied back to that virtual orientation experience. So you might be wondering, hey, Lacey, how can you get parents into the portal? How can you get them into that orientation hub? This was mentioned a little bit earlier, but if you do have a list of incoming families going through orientation, we can simply upload that list of parent emails and they would be added to the portal automatically and also added into that orientation hub. But maybe you don't have all of that data at your fingertips. That's okay. You know, there's some other ways to promote the portal and get them signed up and added in. So if you drive them to the portal URL, whether that's through a website or in a mailer card, they're going to be brought to this sign up page here where they're prompted to sign up. And then from there, the first step is creating an email account and password. And this is that onboarding survey, right? So the first step is filling out some questions. They might be based on what the parent is interested in learning more about. They might be based on some different demographics. For example, maybe the parent has a first-generation college student or they're an alum of the university. With this next question, we're actually placing them into that family orientation hub community because we are able to identify that they're a parent of an incoming student. So it's kind of all magic behind the scenes just with these simple checkboxes that I'm selecting here. Then we have a built-in contact information form. So you have an opportunity to collect some information about the parent. You can make certain fields required if you want. And then the last step is confirming your preferences. Here, the parent's able to select how often they would like to receive a newsletter from the portal. A newsletter is pretty much a digest of what's going on in their portal. So it'll pull in some upcoming events in the calendar, as well as some recent posts in their feed. And research actually shows that most parents prefer weekly communication from their college or university. So wouldn't be surprised if you get a lot of parents and family members opting in for this weekly newsletter. And that's it. So really simple and easy onboarding process. And now you can see I've arrived to the portal feed. And on the left-hand side here, you can see the communities that I've joined. So there's that family orientation hub community because I indicated that I had a new admit. Then we have some default communities that we set up for you. And then some communities based on those interests. I also indicated I was an alumni. And what's probably catching your eye first is this campaign in the top left-hand corner here. So this campaign is a feature that we have that can help highlight something important that you want to really get some good visibility on, you can link out to any web page. And in this case, we want to drive parents to the Family Orientation Hub. So I'm going to go ahead and visit the hub here. And let me break down what you're seeing here. So starting with the left-hand side here, we are building out some description for the community. We're also including an avatar. So if you have an orientation logo or something you want to add in there for some extra flair, you're able to do that. And then in the center feed here, you can see what's called a featured post, which is a post that you want parents to take note of. In this case, we want to make sure that they know about the orientation overview and schedule. There might be some other posts tagged to the community. Every piece of content in the portal is mapped back to a community in CampusESP. So that's really going to personalize the experience for each and every parent. And then on the right-hand side here, you can see we have some upcoming calendar events. So if there are events that you want to promote in parallel to virtual orientation, maybe it's an upcoming webinar or Q&A, this is a really good area to highlight that. And I will also note that CampusESP supports events with registration. So if you do want to collect registrations and signups directly in the portal, that is something we can support for both paid and unpaid events that you might be putting on. And then finally, under support, you can see we added in some important orientation links and some support information like an email and phone number specific for orientation. All right, so now that you have a good idea of what makes up the Family Orientation Hub, I'm going to log back out of my parent portal and log back into my admin account so you can see some of the magic behind the scenes. Of course, I get the reCAPTCHA. We care about security a lot here. Let me get this out of the way here. There we go. Okay, you all officially know that I'm not a robot. Cool. And I'm going to jump over into the admin area so you can see some magic behind the scenes. So as part of orientation, you might want to send out emails to parents and families, and we can set it up as a drip announcement so that it gets sent out automatically based on an action that the user takes in the portal. And in this case, we're going to set it up so that they receive the email based on when they join that Family Orientation Hub community. So first, we're going to add a new announcement. And then we'll put in the name and subject. And then here, instead of scheduling the announcement to go out one time and one time only, we're going to switch it to a drip announcement. And we're going to say 3 days after that family member joins the Family Orientation Hub community, they will receive this email. So this definitely comes in handy during orientation, right? Since you might have multiple sessions throughout the summer, for example, maybe 5, 10 sessions. So we don't want you to have to come in here and create 10 different emails that might be the same exact thing. That's just a headache. So we set it up so that you just set it and forget it. And then the system will do all of the hard work for you. And then next we can design the announcement, which is really the fun part. On the right-hand side, you can see we do have an advanced designer where you can really pick and choose, use some different drag and drop content blocks to really build out that announcement. I'm just going to use the standard template here, which involves adding a photo and some content. So I do have a photo saved. pulling in a past example from a partner we've worked with. Might add some photo description. And then here's the content box. So you can type in what you want the email to say right here. It's very similar to how you would format an email. It's very easy. Or maybe you want to copy and paste something you've written out already. So we don't have to wait 10 minutes for me to type all of this out. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then maybe you want to play around with the formatting, change out the heading. It's very flexible. If you wanted to hyperlink, for example. And then the last thing I want to point out here is that you are able to add in a reference post, which is any post in the portal that you want to draw parents to read into. So reference posts are really great. They tend to get a lot of clicks and engagement. And it's also a great strategy because it brings parents back into the portal and lets them know that there's a whole portal that they have access to where they can get some really solid news and updates. And then from there, I always recommend sending yourself a test email. And I actually sent myself one earlier today. Ta-da, this is what you would expect. And then if you were to click on that reference post, that would bring you back into the portal to that post that you selected. And then from there, you would just review and schedule it out. One last thing I do want to show is some data that you do have access to when it comes to drip announcements. So if we do go back to that drip announcements page, we just have some samples here. But if we find one with some data, you'll be able to see opens and clicks over time as that announcement continues to be sent out to more people. And then if you go ahead and click on the name of the announcement, you will be able to see reach over time. So that gives you a good sense of when the announcement's been performing well, for example. So I thought that was neat. Just wanted to call that one out as well. And as I wrap up here, just some takeaways. As you can see, CampusESP has some really awesome tools that you can use. It's designed to be really user-friendly and easy to use, really to make your life easier during the orientation season and beyond. But we understand that bandwidth can be a lot sometimes. So if you ever need some extra hands, the CampusESP team is also here to help. You could work with people like me and we'll help you get it set up. I'll pass it back to Mel.
Thank you, Lacey. Yes, and working with Lacey and the rest of our customer success team is honestly one of the highlights of working with CampusESP. I get to work with them every single day, but I honestly am impressed constantly at how amazing of relationships they build with our partner schools and how much they're able to do for them. So little shout out to the CS team. We love you. So let me kind of see if I can get back into my sharing now. This is like really the most stress-inducing part of this entire presentation here, isn't it? Wait, never mind. That's not what I needed to do. See, I knew it was going to happen. We were going to have a snafu here.
You got this.
This is called live television, right? All right, here we go. So going back to kind of what we were all talking about at the beginning here, orientation participation really is a sharing of knowledge and resources with the families and supporters of your students. And the reason that we all do it is because student success is at the crux of everything that your campus is really all about. We really believe at CampusESP in the value of working with families to enable student success across the entire enrollment to graduation journey that they go through. We're really proud that some of the statistics we're able to pull from our data that we are having a hand in helping universities with those goals. Students that are connected to their parents in CampusESP, for example, are up to 15% more likely to persist, which is a wonderful statistic. And we are just really kind of excited to work with both Penn State and Plymouth State and all of our other partner universities to really just help elevate the student experience at these campuses and give the families and the students the best experience possible. So I think our next thing to do here is get into these Q&As. I do have a little bit of a growing list here, which I love because this is my favorite part when we can really answer the questions that are important to our community here. So I'm going to actually go straight into, I was trying to look at these before, one for Cindy and Kyle. Dalen asks that, as you know, most campuses are starting to find a little bit of a way back to normal, and in-person experiences for particularly students are becoming kind of the norm again. Are you still planning on hosting virtual orientations for families moving forward in like perpetuity? Or are you going to try and do it more as a hybrid in conjunction with in-person, or what's your plans moving forward?
Yeah, I think for us, we're planning on doing more of a hybrid model moving forward. Like I said earlier, we definitely found value in the fact that they can continue to access these resources throughout their time with us. But nothing will beat that in-person excitement of getting them back with us on campus and seeing it in person. But definitely planning to move forward, continuing to use this resource the way we have been.
And we haven't made a decision about whether or not we're going to do hybrid. We're definitely pivoting back to in-person orientation. I am advocating to keep a hybrid model for those equity issues that I talked about earlier, but also for our international families who aren't traveling. So that's sort of in discussion right now.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think things are going to change, and I think it's good to just have that flexibility available because, I mean, none of us saw 2020 coming. I really hope there's nothing like that in the future for us anytime soon, but knowing that you have the ability to change and move and adjust as the current environment requires you to, does probably make things smoother overall. Lacey, I have one that I think is probably going to go more towards you, but it looks like Kaylin, she's asking about if there is the ability to do webinars and videos within the Orientation Hub.
Yes, so we do support integration with YouTube videos. So I've seen, you know, embedded YouTube videos within different posts and drip announcements and things like that. And I've also seen different customers make use of the calendar feature and adding in some description, maybe including the Zoom link or Zoom registration to push families and really tie that webinar in into the parent portal experience.
Great. Question, I think, for probably any of you, just from your experiences, but this person's asking that when do most colleges and universities roll out their online orientations? Have you seen it be mostly involved in move-in? I think that's when student orientation tends to be. I guess Cindy and Kyle, when do you tend to host yours? And maybe Lacey, then you can comment on when schools that we work with start planning maybe for this.
So for virtual orientation or the online or in person?
Online, I believe.
Online. So it's complicated at Penn State. We're a really large institution and we can only host as many students as we have advising appointments available. So we host our orientations, even the virtual one, throughout the entire summer. But our in-person orientation is 38 sessions. So when I say it goes all summer, it goes all summer. And we did tighten that up a little bit for the virtual, which was nice. One benefit, I guess, of COVID. But we start ours May, June is when things would start.
Yeah, we also, we do not host that many orientation sessions in the summer, but we also begin in June and have it roll out throughout the summer. To continue to engage families to try to prevent the summer melt, and then having all those resources available to them by the time their students move in August.
And Lacey, for people who have come to us to set up a virtual orientation hub, how soon are they starting on it? I feel honestly like we start to see people start talking about it as early as right now when they're thinking about what's coming in the summer.
Yeah, I think the earlier the better. It doesn't hurt to start planning early. So even starting some conversations now isn't going to hurt. I actually worked with Cindy to get orientation up and running for Penn State last year, and worked with her throughout the summer, but we're very flexible in terms of when the work needs to get done and the setup needs to happen.
Okay. And then Lacey, I actually see a couple of questions that all I think are pointing to the same thing. And this is kind of going back to that concept of communities that we introduced. Obviously, when people are joining this orientation community, they have an incoming freshman usually. How does Campus ESP move these families through the experience as their child ages, when they become a second-year student, a third-year student? I know the answer, but I'm going to let you tell. How does Campus ESP make sure that the information that the parents need to receive is changing as their students' experience changes?
Sure. So we do have some workflows set up so that all of that happens magically for you. You don't have to worry about manually moving lists. So that usually happens in May, June. We can work with you to make sure that the workflow happens on the right timing. And then the parent or family member is notified of those changes. And then, of course, everyone's experience is different. If the student's taking a gap year or something like that, they can always update their preferences on their own directly in the portal.
Right. And I also know that we do have that magic that Lacey is talking about is also can possibly involve some integrations with various systems that you might already be using on your campus, either from an enrollment management software or student information system. We can kind of help make sure that all that data is the same across your system, so that you're not having to replicate data or input it in multiple places. Let's see what else we've got here. This question here from Matthew. He's curious about funding. Do other schools charge for online orientation or access to the school's portal? I guess Cindy and Kyle, do you have any kind of fees associated with your virtual or in-person orientations?
No.
And we partner with the orientation office to cover the cost of the orientation modules.
Perfect. And then there's a question here about communities again, Lacey, that is a little bit more detailed, but how can family members either search for other communities that they might want to be a part of, or if they want to, join a new one or remove themselves from a community, is that something that they're able to do once they're in that Campus ESP portal?
Yeah, it is pretty flexible. So there is a page within the portal where a parent can really see what communities they're part of. And we are able to make public communities as well as hidden ones. So if there are certain communities that you don't want to make public to parents, maybe it's just more important for you from a data and tracking perspective, we can work with you on that. But yeah, in terms of the public communities, the parent is able to see those and join or leave as they wish.
Perfect. I'm getting some duplicate questions here, so I apologize. I'm scrolling through to make sure that we've answered all of the different things here. Oh, here's a good one here. Can you add various offices to include information? For example, if we wanted to collaborate with the Veterans Office, could we do that and have them add to the hub? So I guess that kind of talks about campus partners. Really, we do see a lot of our schools partner with various offices and departments across campus to get the information that's really relevant for families. Lacey, do you want to talk about that from maybe more of a logistical standpoint, and then maybe Kyle and Cindy comment on what offices you have seen success partnering with?
Absolutely. So yeah, we definitely work with a lot of institutions who collaborate with various campus partners and push out content based on what their department is. And we have different levels of admin access in Campus ESP. So you have the platform admin where you can see all of that backend area where I was showing you how to create the drip announcement. If you want campus partners to contribute, but don't necessarily want to give them the keys to the car, you can still grant them content admin access, and they would be able to submit content for approval. And yeah, I've seen some really good examples from schools that we worked with, just being able to push out a variety of different things going on campus, and even creating more unique communities based on those different departments as well, if that's something they wanted to pursue, which is really neat.
Kyle or Cindy, are there any partners that you have worked with on your campuses that you found particularly helpful?
That's a tough question. What I have found is that partners are interested and want to be a part of it, but then when they realize that they have to maintain the content on a regular basis, I find that they sort of don't. So it requires some maintaining of those relationships, and housing is one of those offices, right? It was sort of adding one more point of contact for them to reach out to their constituencies, and it became overwhelming for them. So we sort of managed that content for them. So we haven't pursued it probably as much as we should, but it's there, right? I don't know, maybe Kyle has a different experience.
Well, I laughed a little bit because I'm actually the partner that they reached out to add content to our portal.
We'll be a good partner, Kyle.
We'll connect on it.
All right, all right.
Yeah, so our parent loop is actually housed through our marketing and communications office. And so when COVID-19 hit and summer 2020 was approaching, I was actually the campus partner that they pulled in to add content to and contribute to. And it's slowly evolved. And so we're still in the process of kind of redefining what that's going to look like right now, and some staffing changes. But definitely the orientation office, I think, is a great partner for this. But yeah, I can't speak much more to it because I'm actually not like the head person for it. I am just the partner that they pulled in.
You did a fabulous job, Kyle.
Thank you.
All right, we are coming up on time here. So I'm going to take the last question that I can see here that we have, and then we'll wrap it up. One question just really here is about what we're talking about today is how, if you are joining Campus ESP, can you talk to other campuses to see what they are doing and what is working inside their portals and with their parent communication strategies, which I think is a great question. And it's really kind of a centerpiece of what we do, and especially in my department. We want to make sure that all of the people who we work with are learning from each other. Your peers are your best, cheerleaders and best thought leadership providers, and have great insights that they want to share. We try to do that through these webinars. We try to make sure that we're bringing on clients every single month to share their personal experiences and give you ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of. Lacey actually runs a quarterly newsletter where she shares out great examples of content and new ideas that we've seen in our customers' portals via email, so that you can get a little bit inspired there. And then actually we do host 2 events each year, Camp ESP and our Campus ESP Summit, which are for all of our clients to make them even more successful in software. So those are filled with trainings and events, mostly hosted by other Campus ESP users to show off what they've done, share their best practices, and make everybody stronger users and have better experiences. So we try to create a little bit of a Campus ESP community. We're very proud of it, and we are continually trying to grow it. And so we're always looking for new ways to connect our partner schools so they can help each other. So that really takes us to time, and we actually used the whole hour. We weren't sure if we were going to, but here we are. So thank you for all of you who stuck with us for the full hour and for all of the questions. That's my favorite part of this. And I love that we can really talk to each of you and help you understand the different options available. Our emails are on the screen right now. So if you did not get a question out or we didn't get into much detail for you, please reach out to any of us. We're happy to get you more information or connect you to a resource. And there'll be even more information going out tomorrow morning with the recording and the deck, including some how-to guides from our knowledge base if you are a Campus ESP user currently. So that's pretty much it. Cindy, Kyle, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to share your experience with us. Lacey, thank you for walking us through the portal and showing us what CS is magical and doing. And with that, I'm going to close this up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Bye, everyone.